Hello fantasy football fans, this is fantasyendzone.com. Today's blog is going to be 5 running backs to avoid this year in fantasy football. Let me start off by saying if you're not dominating your fantasy football league, it's obvious you need to get into the end zone. fantasyendzone.com. Before I start this blog, I've made this list up, and these are necessarily guys. Some of these guys have lost complete fantasy value. Other guys still have a little bit of value left, but they're guys you want to avoid taking with high draft picks. And I would say anywhere, but before the 7th round. And so you don't want to give up value for these guys when they have very little fantasy value as well, or their fantasy value has somewhat gone down. Alright, the number one on the list is Clinton Portis. This guy was overlooked last year for a reason. I kept hearing a lot of talk about how he could really help a team. I kept saying to myself, he's getting too old. He's getting close to that 30-year-old mark where we see where running backs tend to, productive-wise go down a little bit. Age and injuries have caught up to him. His production is no longer fantasy football worthy. So, Clinton Portis, number one. Number two, Ronnie Brown. Ronnie Brown was on my fantasy football team 2 years ago when he went out halfway through the season. I won the championship that year, and I believe his play for about 6 weeks had a lot to do with that. This guy is very talented. However, injuries have caught up with him. He's had 2 surgeries in the last 3 years. The odds do not favor him at all. When he's healthy, he can be a game-changing back. I do believe his glory days are gone, though. Number 2, Ronnie Brown. Number 3 is going to be LaDainian Tomlinson. He still has some gas left in the tank, but he's not the every-down back that can carry the workload like he once was. Age has started to creep up on him. When running backs hit the age of 30 or close to it, their production goes down. You will not find a classier guy in the league. He can still be effective if he is used right. His fantasy value is not really in demand. Another great back that he reminds me of is like Eddie George. I saw that with him. He was very productive for the Titans for years, but once he hit close to around 30, his production went down. These guys take a beating and a pounding each week, and their body just does not respond. They lose a step, and it should be expected. So his value will not really be in demand, but he will still hold a little bit of value. Number 4, we have Willis McGahee. He lost his job to the new sheriff in town, Ray Rice. He had a great offensive line blocking for him. He saw plenty of action around the goal line. This is the same thing that happened to LenDale White last year. We saw how productive he was this year. He was non-existent. He will have little to no fantasy value this year. We can see last year LenDale White, Chris Johnson carried the ball to the end zone, and once they got to the end zone, LenDale White came in. He scored a lot of touchdowns. I think he scored 13 year before last. And this year he was non-existent. There was times I did not even know if he was on the sidelines. He just never really saw action in the game. Number 5, this will be a shocker to a lot of people. I have selected Thomas Jones. I can't believe what I'm saying. He had one of the best years of his career. I'm just saying all the signs are there. Take heed. Rookie Sean Green really pushed him in the last few weeks of the season. He will still have good fantasy value, but he will not be sought after like he was last year. He could be a great pick after round 7 of the draft. There are too many other talented young running backs to go after. However, there is a huge risk in selecting a rookie or a second-year running back and expecting production. Last year I took a chance on Chris Johnson, with him being a second-year back, and his ability won me a championship, but there was a risk, mainly due to the fact that he was a second-year back. We see a lot of times rookie backs have great rookie seasons, but yet when they come to their second year, they really fall off and numbers go down. Second-year backs are always a gamble. Thomas Jones will have some fantasy football value, but his demand will slip just a little bit. Thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.